Okay. So, to start off this chapter, we need to start talking about relationships because the graphs that we've talked about had dots and edges. These ones are going to have dots and edges as well. This is our last chapter with graphs. Except our edges now have direction. Okay? So, these are what we call digraphs. A graph in which the edges have directions associated with them. So, the best way I can say about this is relationships. Okay, so let's talk about friendships. Or we can talk about dating, I guess. All right. So, for instance, Juan is dating Leslie. Juan likes Leslie. Leslie likes Juan. So, the way we would show that in a digraph is boy likes girl and girl likes boy. Okay. So, you would have two arrows. One that shows the relationship of how Juan feels about Leslie, and the one that would show how Leslie feels about Juan. You also have one-sided relationships. Okay? I've got a huge crush on Shamar Moore, but I'm sure, you know, that sexy man does not think anything about me because he doesn't know who I am. Okay? Criminal Minds?
Oh.
Oh, him.
Oh, him! Yeah!
You said Sharika?
Yeah, the bald headed. Oh,
You said Sharika?
he's sexy. Okay, so the way we would. Oh, I already told him. I said, if there is one guy that I would leave you for, it would be him. Okay, so the way we would show that relationship is I like the guy, but the guy doesn't know anything about me, so he has no relationship to me. Okay. Okay. Saphir, who's your go-to that probably doesn't know who you are? There's no celebrity that you have like a hardcore crush on?
A few.
Trey, who you got?
I got Beyonce.
All right. Trey likes Beyonce, but Beyonce doesn't know who Trey is. So we would show that relationship as he likes her, but she's like, who? Trey? Huh? What?
R.I.P. Jay-Z. Trey-Z.
Or you might have a flat-out hate relationship.
Oh, Miss Harvey.
What? You hate her and she hates you?
Her and she loves her.
No. I need a relationship where you both hate each other.
She probably hates Miss Digraphs. Oh, she hates me. She hates him.
I'm sure she doesn't hate you.
She hates him.
Okay.
Like,
But if there's no relationship between two people, we leave it blank. Okay? There is no relationship between those two people, no matter who it is. Okay? Questions? That was kind of creepy. But all right. So, as always, with the last two chapters, we started out with key terms. So, our edges are now called arcs. So, these are your edges. They just changed the names. They're now going to call them arcs. Your arcs have direction because they have arrows now. So, the direction is it goes from starting vertex to ending vertex. So if I would write this example here, X, Y, that means X is your starting vertex, Y is your ending vertex. And the way we would show this graphically is A leads to Y. So wherever the arrow's pointing is the end. Wherever the line starts is your beginning. If I would flip-flop it and do it YX, that changes your arrow direction. Y is your start and X is your end. The last chapters that we talked about, where we had a line that connected A to B, I told you could write AB or BA. Can't do that anymore. So if they ask you for the arc set, it must be in the order from start to end. So the line that connects A to B would be written A, B, because that's the direction that your line is going in. This one here would be E, A. I've got one that connects D to E. D is my start, E is my end. We have A to D. And give me my last three.
B to D.
B to D is one.
C to C.
You said what?
D to C.
D to C
C to B.
and C to B. Good.
Go ahead.
Drawing my desk back there, Alexis. Okay. The relationship that your two dots have is called your incidence. Okay? If it says A is incident to B, that means A is your start and B is your end. You would ask yourself, A is going to where? They're asking for the incidence to. It's where is this letter going to? E is incident from D. When you see the word from, that means your first letter is your end and your second letter is your start. So where are you coming from? What leads into that number or letter? Okay, so D leads into E. We have adjacent arcs, which means your lines are side by side. These will help you create paths as well as cycles. So if I ask you to create a path that goes from A to E, what would you tell me? I need to go from here to here. Okay? Natalia said we go A to D because that's the way our arrow's pointing. And then I can go from D to E. So A to D, D to E. Those are adjacent arcs, and they are also a path that leads from A to E. If I asked you to create a path that went from A to C, what would you tell me?
A, B, C, C.
A, B, D, C. Good. A, B, D, C. Again, you just have to follow the direction of the arrows. So your arrows now are kind of like one-way streets. You can't go back. You have to follow the direction of the arrows. We also have cycles on these graphs. And all a cycle is a circuit. So a path that starts and ends at the same vertex. So what if I told you I wanted to start and end at A? Okay, so it's at A to B, B to D, D to E, E to A. A to B, B to D, D to E, and E back to A. Is there another cycle or circuit that goes A to A?
A, D, E, A.
A, D, E, A. You could have done this shorter circuit, and that would have been perfectly fine. So again, nothing's really changed between paths and circuits. It's just now you have a direction that you have to follow. You can't pick whatever line you want. The last key term we need to talk about is degrees. We talked about degrees. They were how many lines were coming out of your dot. Well, now that we have directions, we've got two different types of degrees. We have an out degree, which is the number of arcs for which the vertex is the starting vertex. If it's listed in an arc set, so something like A, B, that's an arc set. Your vertex is listed first. So A would have the out degree in this one, because your line's going from A to B. In degree is how many arcs, the number of arcs for which the vertex is the ending vertex. So again, if I have AB, my in degree would be B. So it's listed last. So that graph that we just looked at, let's go back and label out degrees and in degrees. So if I look at vertex A, how many lines are going out of A? Two. How many lines are coming into A? One. So A has an out degree of 2, in degree of 1. B, out degree of
1,
and in degree of
2.
2. It has 1 line coming out, 2 lines coming in. C,
1, 1.
1 and 1. D,
2,
2 and 2. 2 going out, 2 coming in. And finally E,
1,
1 and 1. Questions on key terms, because we're going to practice next. Fantastical. Okay. Consider the picture to the right, the digraph to the right. And again, they call it a digraph because you have direction. So they shortened directed to die. A is incident 2. What lines are pointing out of A to something else?
AD.
A to D,
A to C.
A to C, and A to B. Okay? It's the lines that are coming out of A and going to something. B says A is incident from.
C.
What lines are coming into A?
C and E.
C and E. You will have a section on your test where it will say, this point is incident to, and you need to list them all. Or this point is incident from, you need to list them all. Okay? Find the in and out degree of each vertex. We can label it directly on the graph. So, A has an out degree. 3.
In degree of 2.
In degree of 2. What about B?
1 and 1.
1 and 1. Let's jump over here to D.
All false.
4 for what? In degree is 4. Your out degree is 0 then. If there are no lines that go out of the point, it is 0. What about E? Out degree.
Out degree 2.
In degree. Fantastic. And finally C. Out degree of
3.
and in degree of
1.
So far, not too bad, right?
So far.
The part that's going to catch you is probably going to be tomorrow's part where you actually have to start scheduling stuff. All right. D says, find a path that goes from A to D.
AD.
AD. There's a line that just connects the two. That's a path. Okay. There are multiple paths, though.
AC.
I could go ACD. I could go ABD. Okay? If I ask you to find a path from A to D and I don't give you a length, any one of these would work. Okay. Are there any cycles in this graph? If so, where do you find them?
A to C.
A to C and back to A.
Okay.
That is a circle. Or, yeah, circle. Well, it is a circle too, but it's a cycle. A to C and back to A. Remember, your difference is cycle has to start and end in the same spot.
Like a circle.
They just changed it to a cycle because we've got a directed graph now instead of a regular. So cycle and circle are exactly the same thing.
Wait, so a cycle can only have, is there like a,
You can do multiple cycles. So I could do,
like you can go A, D, wait,
you can't go back
yeah.
from D, but you could do A to C, C to E, and E back to A.
Oh, yes, yes.
You could do A to C, C to E, and E back to A.
It's just a circuit.
It's just a circuit. They just changed the name and call it a cycle. Just like your edges are still your edges, but now they call them arcs because they have direction. Okay. Okay. You may also be able to identify these from an arc set. Okay, remember, if I'm looking for the out degree, that means my letter has to come first. Okay, so how many times does the letter V come first? 2. It comes first here and here. So it has an out degree of 2. How many times does Z come first? 2. Here and here. So it also has an out degree of 2. If they're looking for in degree,
0.
that means that it has to come last. How many times does V come last?
0.
0. It never happens.
Z is 3.
And Z is 3. Good. Z happens here, here, and here. Okay. Where in the world are you going to see this in real life? Guess what?
Stop sign.
They use this for traffic flow. When you
Oh.
watch the news and stuff, traffic diagram. I'm not. They can show telephone traffic. I call Trey. So the line leads from me to Trey. I'm the starting vertex because I made the call. Trey's the ending vertex.
Call Lewis.
Okay? I call you, you call Lewis.
Call Jeremiah.
That's adjacent arcs. Okay? They can also do tournaments. Okay? Let's say Lexington Soccer plays East Forsyth and we win.
What?
That means we're the starting vertex, they're the ending vertex.
I like y'all and
Okay.
everything.
Also, flow charts that you've done in how many classes?
I forgot that.
I don't even know if they're.
Right. I forgot.
Really? You don't do flow charts anymore?
Like,
You don't even do them in like biology where you go from like
we did one about
being a tadpole to whatever till you get to the frog. That's a flow chart.
We did one about
That's a digraph. Whoa.
Like a life cycle.
It's the cycle of life. Okay, you go from baby to toddler to teenager that's a pain in the butt.
Months.
Okay, you get the whole way to the old person, you die off, and guess what? A new baby's born. It's the cycle of life. That's a digraph. Okay, you are also going to have to draw one project digraph on your test. Okay,
I thought you were saying project.
project digraph means that you must have a start and an end. So anytime they ask you to draw a project digraph, if they just ask you to draw a graph, you don't need a start and an end. Project digraph means start and end. So as soon as you see project, I want you to put a dot and I want you to put start. Your start always leads into the points that have no precedent relations. So your start in this digraph is going to lead to point X because nothing has to come before it. and it's going to go to point Y because nothing has to come before it. So right beside your start, you're going to put a dot and label it X, and put another dot and label it Y. Your start leads into these 2 points. Remember, we're talking direction in this chapter. So your start can lead to anything that does not have a prerequisite that has to happen beforehand.
A what?
Prerequisite.
Yeah, what's that?
So like, think about it. You can't take math 2 until you take math 1. You can't take math 3. So math 1 is a prerequisite for math 2. It has to happen before math 2. Does that make sense? So you can't come into high school and take math 3 and then go back and take math 1 your junior year. It just doesn't work.
Oh, you will be confused.
Right. You'd be lost.
Especially if you have to start at them 80.
Right. There's a flow that happens in your math classes.
Drop out.
Okay, so now once you get your starting points, you're going to look here. What does X lead to?
W or U?
It leads to W and to U. So you need to put a point U and a point W and show the fact that X goes to U and to W.
Right. Come on now.
My suggestion to you is once you put it, cross it off. Or else you're going to confuse yourself and go, wait, did I do that one? Did I do that one? And once you get a crap ton of lines up there, you're like, I can't tell what. Okay. So cross them off as you do that. What does Y lead into? U and V. Well, U is already there, so we just need to draw a line with an arrow on it that leads to U. We don't have a V yet, so I need to put a V and draw the fact that Y leads to V. And again, cross them out when you're done. The last thing you need for a project diagram is an ending. All good things must come to an end. Okay? So the ones that have no lines going out of them will lead to the end. So U goes nowhere. So U has to go to the end. W also goes nowhere. So they go to the end.
V.
And V goes to the end. And you are finished. You drew your first project diagram.
I like it. I like that.
You like it?
Mm-hmm.
You like it, you love it.
So the start and the end aren't actually going to be the start.
No.
Or when did we do you? Oh, you.
So where did
Okay.
it
Okay. Here's the last one we're going to draw today. So again, the first thing I want you to do when you see project diagram is put start.
Start with that big.
What points does the start lead into this time?
C, B, and F.
Wait, isn't it B, D, and E?
B, D, and E.
Oh, yeah.
The ones that have nothing that has to happen before them. So it goes to B, it goes to D, and it goes to E.
Gotta remember to draw arrows.
That's going to be the biggest thing. And I've had that happen so many times where the kids will draw the perfect project diagram. No arrows.
You took off points.
Have to.
You
How do you?
like draw a graph number. That's what makes the graph.
They're so used to chapters 5, 6, and 7 where we had no arrows
Yeah.
that so. All right. What does B lead to?
C, F, and G.
C, F, and G. So I need a point C, a point F, and a point G. And draw the arrows that connect B to all three of those points.
Brenda, you're early.
I know. I was so excited.
Hey, this is taking one off foot.
Yeah, we took like 3 tests today. So you have to come to school and make them all up.
Y'all are so mean. Okay, I'm gonna jump down. I like to do all the starting points first. So what does D lead to?
G.
D leads to G. Well, I already have the point, so all I need to do, draw the arrow. This one is gonna get a little messy. E, what does E lead to? C. Oh my, that's gotta go clear up here.
Can we like draw it
Yeah,
around?
can we do it around?
Yeah.
You ain't gonna come and I ain't gonna get the remodel test.
Okay, so we did B, D, and E. Let's start at C. What does C lead to? Point A. So go ahead and draw yourself an A.
How are we not right there?
Because we didn't get that far yet.
No.
That's all. We didn't get that far yet. Okay, so C led to A. What does F lead to? A. So let's draw an arrow. What else does F lead to? H. Well, I don't have that point yet, so I've got to draw it. And draw your arrow.
Right.
Your last one then says G leads to H. So I need a line that goes from G to H.
Now you're gonna draw the end.
I see what they
The last thing I need is an ending. What points go to the end?
A
A and H. They're the only ones that don't lead into anything else. So A goes to the end and H goes to the end.
She's so confused right now, isn't it?
She'll be fine.
No, no.
She'll be fine. She is smart enough that she will pick herself right up.
The number. She said it's 47.
What?
She says the answer is somewhere over the rainbow.
That's all.
Okay. This is the last section I want to cover today. So it is the back side of the paper that we were just on and the front side of the next page, and we're done. Facts. Okay, so we need to talk about the basic elements of scheduling. Okay, so now you're going to take tasks and you're going to start to put them in a certain order. So, question, what do you need to do to apply and attend college? You need the SAT. I'm going to put SAT or ACT. Most colleges want one or the other. What else do you need?
GPA.
You need a good GPA.
And some colleges require you to do extracurricular
Extracurricular activities.
ECA.
M-O-N-E-Y.
M-O-N-E-Y.
Give me a piece of paper.
You need what?
We need some dope. Some dope knowledge.
You need to graduate.
Oh my God. You need to what, Alexis? You need to graduate. You need a diploma. You need a diploma. What do your guidance counselors print out for you and send off?
Scholarships.
Transcripts.
Oh.
He said scholarship.
Okay? Scholarships are a good one. If you're applying for scholarships, what do you need from people like me? Recommendations. Cannot spell today.
I don't know how to spell recommendation.
Sorry, we all got some days.
I put two C's.
Okay,
Recommendation's a long word.
this is a lot of stuff that you need. This is not all of it. There's some other stuff we could throw in there. Okay, but looking at these items that we've listed, can you do all of these at once at the same time? No.
Physically impossible.
Who does all of these things? Well, your counselor does your transcripts. Your teachers do your
The
recommendations.
streets supply your money.
Okay. Okay. So the point I'm getting at is, can you do all of these tasks yourself? Well, in order to get a diploma, it takes
12 years.
4 years in high school,
No.
12 years altogether.
13.
Okay, 13 if you went to kindergarten.
14 if you go to pre-K.
Okay, 14 if you went to pre-K. Okay.
Say,
Okay. So some of these things will take longer than others. So issues of scheduling in real life. Okay. Different tasks need to be completed at different times. Different tasks need to be completed by different people. Okay. So that all comes into play when we do the scheduling tomorrow. Okay. Basic elements of scheduling. You have processors. Okay. Your processors are the people doing the work. So we need to decorate the gym for a dance. Maria, Natroya, and Ashanta are all on the decorating committee. So all three of them are considered your processors. They're doing the work. They're decorating. Okay. N represents how many processors you have. So if I tell you N equals 3, you have 3 processors. If I tell you N equals 17, you have 17 processors. Question.
Player 1, player 2, player 3.
Okay. So P1 represents processor 1. P2 represents processor 2. So on and so forth. What did I do with that page? I want to make sure I put the right words in here. Your tasks are indivisible units of work. And what that means is each task cannot be shared between the processors. So that means if Natroya is the one hanging up the streamers, no one can help her. That job is Natroya's. Okay. If Ashanta's setting up the food, no one can help her. That's Ashanta's job. Okay. I know you didn't just say that. It's almost as bad as my husband when he proposed to me while I was doing dishes.
oh.
And I said, why did you propose to me then? And he goes, because you were doing what every good woman should be doing. Dishes.
Oh,
I mean, I'm saying I could too. I'm just saying. You said she was in charge of the food, so.
oh no, you would think I'm a lady. My leg.
Okay, so they're not going to tell you your task is to hang streamers or your task is to set up food. They're going to call your task A. And they're going to put beside that a pair of parentheses. And inside that, they're going to put a number. So what this means is task A takes 5, either minutes or hours or seconds
I just put time.
to complete.
What if I complete units?
That's fine too. Okay, whatever units that it's in, it takes 5 minutes to complete. If you have B and then in the parentheses is a 9, it takes 9 hours to complete. Okay, so whatever's in parentheses is how long it takes the task to finish.
If a real propose to you when you wash the dishes.
Yes,
He wanted
Did
to
you get soap on?
he owned a trailer and we were living in there while the house was being fixed up. But we had like sliding glass doors that when you came in, it was like the sink and fridge were in front of you. So I'm in there doing dishes and I can hear him pull in the driveway. He walks in, I'm like, normally he walks in and wraps his arms around me and, says hi, whatever. I'm standing there, I'm like, nothing. I turn around, my hands are dripping with soap and he's down on one knee. I was like,
He was crying.
oh, I cried. But then when he turned around and said, well, because you were doing what every good woman should be doing, he almost got a no.
Oh. Should have said it. Maybe next year.
Right, maybe next year when you learn how to propose properly. Okay. Your tasks can be in 4 different stages. Your task can be completed, which means your processor has started and finished the task, which means you are done. Okay, that task is done. If it's completed, it's done. Your task can also be in execution, which means you've started it and you're still working. So you're still hanging streamers, or you're still setting up food. Your task can be ready. Okay? Ready means you could start it because all of your prerequisites are finished. So it can be started, we just haven't gotten there yet because we're working on something else. And finally, your task can be ineligible, which means it cannot be started because some of the prerequisites still need to be finished. So think about it this way. You're driving down the street, you wreck your car. Your car is all dented, scratched, beat up. Okay? So you need to knock out all the dents, straighten everything all out, and you need to repaint it so it doesn't look like crap. Right? Are you going to paint your car before you fix all the dents and scratches first?
No.
No. So your dents and fixing all of that is a prerequisite. You can't paint until that has happened. So your car would be ineligible to be painted until all of the repairs have been made. Does that make sense? Okay. So I always go back to the task of getting a license due to the fact that most of you either have just gotten it or are in the process of. So, in the state of North Carolina, how old do you have to be before you get your permit?
14 and a half.
I have no idea.
You can't get your permit until you're 14 and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you're ineligible, that means you're 14 years old. You can't get it yet. Okay? When are you ready to get your license? 14 and a half. What else do you need at 14 and a half to get your license? Permit. You have to have your permit. Okay? They told me last period that once you're 18, you don't need a permit anymore to get your license. But when you're 14 and a half, you have to be 14 and a half and have a permit. Okay. When are you in execution?
When you have this restricted license, right? Or when you got the permit?
Not necessarily. What are you doing when you're going to get your license?
Learning.
Happy.
Not really.
Taking
Hours of driving.
Not necessarily
Driver's
taking
ed.
lessons.
Take the test.
You're taking your test.
I knew that.
Okay? When you're getting your license and you're in execution, you're actually taking your test. And once you've completed your execution, what do you have at the end?
Your license.
You have a license. Okay? Another one I always like to talk about is baking a cake. What makes you ineligible to bake a cake? You don't have ingredients.
Too young.
Okay? You have no ingredients. When are you ready to start baking your cake? Once you've taken all your ingredients and you mix them all together. Okay? When you're in execution, what's happening?
It's baking.
It's baking. And when you're completed, you eat a cake.
I
Okay?
want this to cool down.
What, you don't want to eat a burning hot cake?
Right.
Oh, my cake hard.
Okay, so there are some things that we're going to assume in this chapter about the times. Okay, so task A takes 9 hours. We're going to assume those 9 hours are versatile. Okay, what that means is any processor can execute any task.
Execute.
Okay, so that means, I don't know, what do you want to do this time?
Money.
How do you do money?
All right, so you can hold it.
Oh, no.
You too.
I don't care.
He's like, I don't care, that was for me.
All right, I'm sorry.
Okay, let's say we're building an engine for a car. Do you know how to build an engine? No. Do you know how to build an engine?
Are you asking the girls?
Do you know how to
Yes.
build an engine?
I do.
Okay, so Andy knows how to build an engine. ZMR and Brenda don't. But guess what? In this situation, they can build it. Okay? You're going to assume that no matter what the task is, anybody can do it. I can't run a mile. I will die. I'm not kidding. Fat kids don't run. Okay? I will die. So, but in this situation, if they told me to run a mile, I could do it. Okay? No, I probably don't want to know. Okay. Also, uniformity. Okay, the processing time for the task is the same regardless of the processor. I don't care that it only takes Natroya 9 minutes to run a mile, and it takes me 27. If they tell me. Are you laughing because I'm making fun of myself so bad?
27 minutes to run a mile. Are you serious?
Honey, it took me like 27 minutes in high school to run a mile. Why? Because I walked like this down the track because I didn't care. They told me run, and I said, fat kids don't run. And I walked.
Still to walk.
I didn't even brisk walk. It was like,
You probably just stopped.
so I got to do this, get over to the other side of the track, and I'm like,
Bro, no, this
I'm
is
out of breath.
this is old man. They stay in my apartment. His name is Greg. He'll walk like 5 steps and then stop. Like he'll just be walking, or suddenly walk to the store. He'll stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He just stops. He used to be like,
You're right.
And then 2 minutes later, he'll
he
start
start
walking
walking again. I'm like, bro, Greg, what are you doing?
Okay, so what uniformity means is if the task takes 7 hours, it takes each and every person in this room 7 hours to do. Nobody is faster or slower than anybody else. Okay? And perseverance, the processor will complete the task without interruption. Okay? So once you start a 9-hour task, you work straight for 9 hours and finish it. You don't get coffee breaks, lunch breaks, smoke breaks, whatever. You don't get to sit there and take a breath for 30 minutes. You get no time. It's straight 9 hours.
You work now.
Okay? Questions? Okay? The last thing we need to talk about is president relations. Okay, these are formal restrictions on the tasks. So if you see something like X goes to Y, this means that task X must be started and finished before Y can be started. Okay, so back to that car example. I need to knock out all the dents and fix all the bruises on the car before I can paint it. Okay? I need to sand it and make sure it's all smooth before I paint it. That needs to be started and finished before you can even think about painting it. Okay? The way this looks on a graph is X, and then you will see an arrow that leads to Y. So when you see it in graph form and you see an arrow that goes from X to Y, that just means X has to be started and finished before Y is even thought about. You may see something that are independent tasks. This means any task can be started at any time. Okay, which means that nothing leads to anything else. And independent tasks will look like this, where you just see the dots. There's no arrows that lead into it. If you don't see any arrows, that means nothing needs to be done before that task can be started, which makes it independent. Okay? Tasks are also transitive. Okay, so what that means, if X leads into Y, X has to be started and finished before Y can be started. If Y then leads to Z, Y has to be completed before Z can be started, which means X also comes before Z. Okay, so there's an order that things has to happen. X has to come first, Y comes second,
Like the
and
alphabet.
Z comes last. Okay.
Kind of like the alphabet.
Just listen, I could have wrote S, A, and C.
Yeah, but with X, Y, Z.
Okay, so this is a transitive example. The last one is a cycle. Okay, one thing you'll never see though is a cycle because there is no starting point. So if you see something that looks like this that just keeps going around and around and around, you should never ever see that. So if you see it, something is wrong. Okay, there is no cycles in this section. Are there any questions? Okay.